to do the doctor bit. And Dr. Turner earned his PhD this year in the history of science. And Dr. Turner is representing our graduates. Big round of applause.
I suppose I have to say congratulations at least one more time. I have to hear it at least 12 more times before the day is over. This day is a little surreal, I'm not going to lie. And I don't know about you, but I did not think that I was the sort of person who would end up here. Kids in my schools did not grow up to be doctors. They grew up to be pipe fitters, they grew up to be nurses, plumbers, apparently. They also grew up to be contractors and clerks. But even dreaming less fantastic futures for myself than Dr. Turner, I still managed to baffle teachers and peers as a weird dream. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a spy. I also, at some point, wanted to be a professional thief and safecracker. How does this pay the bills? They wanted to know. Stop swearing so much. How are you going to get a husband at this rate? So I have to say that I'm very grateful that my mother supported me in these rites of fancy, and that my father worked to get me into better high schools where I would be able to pursue some of these opportunities that we never had. And by the time I started college, I was going to be a writer, until I took a class on forensic science, and then it changed yet again. This time I leaned into it, though. I idolized the nerds down the street at MIT, and especially their legendary pranks. I tried to convince all my friends that we should steal the dean's car and put it on the roof. I taught myself to pick locks and broke into steam tunnels. And then I taught myself how to code just so that I could make a website devoted to nothing but bragging about all the places that I snuck into. Now, sadly, I never convinced anyone to steal the dean's car. Yet, there's still time. And I never became a forensic scientist, because when I found myself suddenly and unexpectedly homeless, all of these dreams seemed more like liabilities than realities. And suddenly that web design experience seemed like something of a salvation. And so I put my head down and I worked. And before I knew it, I blinked and I was a decade into a very respectable career as a web developer. This is when I stumbled across a little book by Hannah Arendt. It was not her magnum opus on totalitarian, it was just a modest little thing called The Promise of Politics. But this book literally saved my life, because it gave me purpose that could sustain me spiritually in a way that the safe path never had. My quest then became to understand political judgment. Put simply, how do we understand the world that we are confronted with? And how do we decide what to do about it? What I couldn't have anticipated, as someone who imagined I was maybe a little too unruly for a place like Harvard, is that Harvard would in fact be exactly where I would be able to indulge that little girl almost everything she could want. I have not become a safecracker yet, but being a historian of science let me be a spy and a forensic scientist digging around in dead people's papers. It let me be an actor standing in front of a classroom of students making history come alive. And it let me be an artist and a writer taking shards of evidence and piecing them together into a story of mosaic. Now, my time in grad school has not been easy. I don't imagine it has been for most of y'all either. But I've met more brilliant, morally serious, diverse, and surprisingly grounded people here than anyone has a right to. And they have changed me. You have changed me for the better. I hope that others of you that can say the same. But I, for one, have been very glad to have traveled this part of my path together with you. Today, though, every one of us stands at a crossroad, every one of us. The world we leave Harvard for is not the world we entered it from. And so I am here to wish you safety on your way. There are plenty to meet us here, to tell us what jobs people like us are allowed to have, to tell us what kind of lives we're allowed to live, who we're allowed to marry, to tell us who we're allowed to associate with. They will even tell us how to use the bathroom if we let them. Now, where I'm from, folks say to be wary of those you meet at crossroads, and to say a little prayer as you go on. So today, I pray that you hold gently but firmly to the hand of that wonderfully foolish little child that you used to be, the one who didn't know any better than to say that the emperor has no clothes, who still had a playground sense of justice and believed in things like the golden rule, and who hadn't yet been tricked into forgetting that weird, wonderful, divine little creature that you were put on this earth to be. Resurrect the child put to death with the 1,000 cuts of propriety that everyone seems so hell-bent on inflicting on one another. Protect them, and they will show you the path that you were put on when you entered this world. To walk our own paths is our birthright, but only up until the point that it denies that right to others. This boundary, unlike that, is safe. This boundary is sacred. Do not cross it. And do not let anyone else steal it. Not from you, not from anyone. And if they do, my advice is to simply steal it right now. Now, we have a lot of ways to wish people a safe journey where I grew up in Texas. I couldn't possibly list them all, but if you'll forgive my atrocious accent, Vaya con Dios, Ma'al Salama, Lesh Shalom, Gonairi Andohavlet, Kalitihi, Tekoniapola. Thank you.